Hello Year 3. We thought, as it was story time, that we all should read a book to you. So you can probably guess who I am. So I've got ears. I'm wearing a shirt and tie. I'll try and see if I can show you my tail. Here's my tail. Okay. I'm not going to show you the cover of the book until I've read to see if you can try and guess who it is. I hope you've had a great day. Please make sure you send in your pictures of your World Book Day outfits. We saw some great ones on Zoom this morning. Thank you so much. If you could bring, some of you are going to bring your outfits in as well, which would be lovely. So it's my turn to read. So my chapter starts, I'm going to read you 2 chapters because they're only short. So the first one is number 1. The 3 farmers. Down in the valley there were 3 farms. The owners of these farms had done well. All 3 of them were rich. They were also nasty. All 3 of them about as nasty and as mean as men you could meet. Their names were Farmer Boggis, Farmer Bunce and Farmer Bean. Okay, I'll just show you a picture there. Boggis was a chicken farmer. He kept thousands of chickens. He was enormously fat. This was because he ate 3 boiled chickens smothered with dumplings every day for breakfast, lunch and supper. I don't know if you can see there. Bunce was a duck and goose farmer. He kept thousands of ducks and geese. He was a kind of pot-bellied dwarf. He was so short, his chin would have been underwater in the shallow end of any swimming pool in the world. His food was doughnuts and goose livers. He mashed the livers into a disgusting paste and then stuffed the paste inside the doughnuts. This diet gave him tummy ache and a beastly temper. There we go. I don't know if you can see him. They all sound lovely, don't they? Bean was a turkey and apple farmer. He kept thousands of turkeys in an orchard full of apple trees. He never ate any food at all. Instead, he drank gallons and gallons of cider he made from the apples in his orchard. He was as thin as a pencil and the cleverest of them all. Oh, there he is, collecting his apples. Boggis and Bunce and Bean. One fat, one short, one lean. These horrible cooks, so different in looks, were none the less equally mean. That is why the children round about used to sing when they saw them. So chapter 2, Mr. Fox. On a hill above the valley there was a wood. In the wood there was a huge tree. Under the tree there was a hole. In the hole lived Mr. Fox and Mrs. Fox and their 4 small foxes. Every evening, as soon as it got dark, Mr. Fox would say to Mrs. Fox, "Well, my darling, what shall it be this time? A plump chicken from Boggis, a duck or a goose from Bunce, or a nice turkey from Bean?" And when Mrs. Fox had told him what she wanted, Mr. Fox would creep down into the valley in the darkness of night and help himself. Boggis and Bunce and Bean knew very well what was going on, and it made him wild with rage. There were not men who lived to give anything away, lest they like anything to be stolen from them. So every night each of them would take his shotgun and hide in a dark place and catch the robber. But Mr. Fox was too clever for them. He always approached the farm with the wind blowing in his face, and this meant that if any men were lurking in the shadows ahead, the wind would carry the smell of that man to Mr. Fox's nose from far away. Thus, if Mr. Boggis was hiding behind his chicken house number 1, Mr. Fox would smell him out from 50 yards off and quickly change direction, heading for chicken house number 4 at the end of the farm. "Dang and blast that lousy beast," cried Boggis. "I'd like to rip his guts out," said Bunce. "But how," said Boggis, "how on earth can we catch the blighter?" Bean picked his nose with a long finger. "I have a plan," he said. "You've never had a decent plan yet," said Bunce. "Shut up and listen," said Bean. "Tomorrow night we will all hide just outside the hole where the fox lives. We will wait until he comes out, then bang, bang, bang." "Very clever," said Mr. Bunce. But where shall we find a hole first?" My dear Bunce, I've already found it, said the crafty bean. It's up the wood, on the hill, it's under a tree. I'm not sure if you've guessed it, but I am going to show you. It is Fantastic Mr. Fox. That's who I am today. And then there'll be one more with Miss Bowler, so she'll be able to reveal. Only one more day to go. Look forward to seeing you. Bye.
Hello children, I hope you're enjoying World Book Day. I wonder if you can guess who I'm dressed as. I'm just going to read you a story. The sun did not shine, it was too wet to play. We sat in the house all that cold, cold, wet day. I sat there with Sally, we sat there we two, and I said, how I wish we had something to do. Too wet to go out, too cold to play ball. We sat in the house, we did nothing at all. So all we could do was sit, 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 and we did not like it, not one little bit. And then something went bump, and how that bump made us jump. We looked and then we saw him step on the mat. We looked and we saw him, the Cat in the Hat. And he said to us, why do you sit like that? I know it is wet and the sun is not sunny, but we have lots of fun that is funny. I know some good games we could play, said the cat. I know some tricks, said the Cat in the Hat. A lot of good tricks. I will show them to you. Your mother will not mind at all if I do. Then Sally and I did not know what to say. Our mother was out of the house for the day. But our fish said, no, no, make that cat go away. Tell that Cat in the Hat you do not want to play. He should not be here. He should not be about. He should not be here when your mother is out. Now, have no fear, said the cat. My tricks are not bad, said the Cat in the Hat. Why, we can have lots of good fun if you wish, with a game that I call Up, Up with a Fish. Put me down, said the fish. This is no fun at all. Put me down, said the fish. I do not wish to fall. Have no fear, said the cat. I will not let you fall. I will hold you up high, as I stand on a ball, with a book in one hand and a cup on my hat. But that is not all I can do, said the Cat in the Hat. Look at me now, said the cat. With a cup and a cake on top of my hat. I can hold up 2 books, I can hold up a fish, a little toy ship, and some milk in a dish. And look, I can hop up and down on a ball. But that is not all. Oh no, that is not all. Look at that cat. Look at me now. It is fun to have fun, but you have to know how. I can hold up the cup and the milk and the cake. I can hold up these books and a fish and a rake. I can hold a toy ship and a little toy man. And look, with my tail, I can hold a red fan. I can fan the fan as I hop on the ball, but that is not all. Oh no, that is not all. That's what the cat said. Then he fell on his head. He came down with a bump from up there on the ball, and Sally and I, we saw all the things fall. And our fish came down too, and he fell in a pot. And he said, I do not like this. Oh no, I do not. This is not a good game, said our fish as he lit. No, I do not like it, not one little bit. Now look what you did, said the fish to the cat. Now look at this house, look at this, look at that. You sank our toy ship, you sank it deep in a cake. You shook up our house and you bent our new rake. You should not be here when our mother is not. You get out of this house, said the fish in the pot. But I like it here. Oh, I like it a lot, said the Cat in the Hat to the fish in the pot. I will not go away. I do not wish to go. And so the Cat in the Hat said, So. I shall show you another good game that I know. And then he ran out. And then fast as a fox, the Cat in the Hat came back with a box. A big red wood box. It was shut with a hook. Now look at this trick, said the cat. Take a look. And there's the cat with the box. I wonder what's inside. Then he got on top, and with the tip of his hat, I call this game Fun in a Box, said the cat. In this box are 2 things I shall show you now. You will like these 2 things, said the cat with a bow. I will pick up the hook and you will see something new. 2 things that I call them, thing 1 and thing 2. These things will not bite you, they want to have fun. Then out of the box came thing 2 and thing 1. They ran up to us fast. They said, "How do you do? Would you like to shake hands with thing 1 and thing 2? And there they are. The cat has let things out of the box.
Hi Year 3, I hope you had a lovely World Book Day. I'm filming this on World Book Day in my costume. Can you guess what character I am? I'm in a blue dress, I've got a red ribbon in my hair, which I might start wearing more often because I really like it. And I'm carrying around some books because my character is a bookworm. She's also a child. She's very clever. And she has some special powers. Can you guess who I am? Hope you didn't see that. I'm Matilda. So I'm now going to read you the first chapter of Matilda in the hope that if you like it, maybe you can read the rest of it yourself. I'm sure a lot of you have already watched the film. It's a good film, isn't it? But it'd be cool if some of you read the book too. So the first chapter is called, we can get to it, The Reader of Books. It's a funny thing about mothers and fathers. Even when their own child is the most disgusting little blister you could ever imagine, they still think that he or she is wonderful. Some parents go further. They become so blinded by adoration, they manage to convince themselves the child has qualities of a genius. Well, there is nothing wrong with all this. It's the way of the world. It's only when the parents begin telling us about the brilliance of their own revolting offspring that we start shouting, "Bring us a basin, we're going to be sick." School teachers suffer a good deal from having to listen to this sort of twaddle from proud parents, but they usually get their own back when the time comes to write the end of term reports. If I were a teacher, I would cook up some real scorchers for the children of doting parents. "Your son, Maximilian," I would write, "is a total washout. I hope you have a family business you can push him into when he leaves school, because he sure as heck won't get a job anywhere else." Or if I were feeling lyrical that day, I might write, "It is a curious truth that grasshoppers have their hearing organs in the side of the abdomen. Your daughter Vanessa, judging by what she's learnt this term, has no hearing organs at all." I might even delve deeper into natural history and say, "The periodical cicada spends 6 years as a grub underground, no more than 6 days as a free creature of sunlight and air. Your son Wilfred has spent about 6 years as a grub in this school, and we are still waiting for him to emerge." A particularly poisonous little girl might sting me into saying, "Fiona has the same glacial beauty as an iceberg, but unlike the iceberg, she has absolutely nothing below the surface." I think I might enjoy writing end-of-term reports for the stinkers in my class, but enough of that. We have to get on. Occasionally, one comes across parents who take the opposite line, who show no interest at all in their children, and these, of course, are far worse than the doting ones. Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood were 2 such parents. They had a son called Michael and a daughter called Matilda, and the parents looked upon Matilda in particular as nothing more than a scab. A scab is something you have to put up with until the time comes when you pick it off and flick it away. Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood looked forward enormously to the time when they could pick their little daughter off and flick her away, preferably into the next county, or even further than that. It is bad enough when parents treat ordinary children as though they were scabs and bunions, but it becomes somehow a lot worse when the child in question is extraordinary, and by that I mean sensitive and brilliant. Matilda was both of these things, but above all, she was brilliant. Her mind was so nimble, and she was so quick to learn that her ability should have been obvious to even the most half-witted of parents. But Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood were both so gormless and so wrapped up in their own silly little lives that they failed to notice anything unusual about their daughter. To tell the truth, I doubt they would have even noticed had she crawled into the house with a broken leg. Matilda's brother Michael was a perfectly normal boy, but the sister, as I said, was something to make your eyes pop. By the age of 1.5, her speech was perfect, and she knew as many words as most grown-ups. The parents, instead of applauding her, called her a nosy chatterbox and told her sharply that small girls should be seen and not heard. By the time she was 3, Matilda had taught herself to read by studying newspapers and magazines that lay around the house. At the age of 4, she could read fast and well, and she naturally began hankering after books. The only book in the whole of this enlightened household was something called Easy Cooking, belonging to her mother, and when she had read this from cover to cover and had learned all the recipes by heart, she decided she wanted something more interesting. Look, there's Matilda and Michael, and there's Matilda studying the newspapers, learning to read. Very clever girl. Daddy, she said, do you think you could buy me a book? A book, he said. What do you want a flaming book for? To read, Daddy. What's wrong with the telly, for heaven's sake? We've got a lovely telly with a 12-inch screen, and now you come asking for a book. You're getting spoiled. Nearly every weekend afternoon, Matilda was left alone in the house. Her brother, 5 years older than her, went to school. Her father went to work, and her mother went out playing bingo in a town 8 miles away. Mrs. Wormwood was hooked on bingo and played it 5 afternoons a week. On the afternoon of the day when her father had refused to buy her a book, Matilda set out all by herself to walk to the public library in the village. When she arrived, she introduced herself to the librarian, Mrs. Phelps. She asked if she might sit a while and read a book. Mrs. Phelps, slightly taken back at the arrival of such a tiny girl unaccompanied by a parent, nevertheless told her she was very welcome. Where are the children's books, please? Matilda asked. They're over there on those lower shelves, Mrs. Phelps told her. Would you like me to help you find a nice one with lots of pictures in it? No, thank you, Matilda said. I'm sure I can manage. From then on, every afternoon, as soon as her mother had left the bingo, Matilda would toddle down to the library. The walk took only 10 minutes, and this allowed her 2 glorious hours sitting quietly by herself in a cosy corner, devouring one book after another. When she had read every single children's book in the place, she started wandering round in search of something else. Mrs. Phelps, who had been watching her with fascination for the past few weeks, now got up from her desk and went over to her. Can I help you, Matilda? She asked. I'm wondering what to read next, Matilda said. I've finished all the children's books. You mean you've looked at the pictures? Yes, but I've read the books as well. Mrs. Phelps looked down at Matilda from her great height, and Matilda looked right back up at her. I thought some were very poor, said Matilda, but others were lovely. I liked The Secret Garden best of all. It was full of mystery. The mystery of the room behind the closed door and the mystery of the garden behind the big wall. Look, there's Mrs. Phelps looking down at Matilda. Look how tiny she is. Mrs. Phelps was stunned. Exactly how old are you, Matilda? She asked. 4 years and 3 months, Matilda said. Mrs. Phelps was more stunned than ever, but she had the sense not to show it. What sort of book would you like to read next? She asked. Matilda said, I would like a really good one that grown-ups read, a famous one. I don't know any names. Mrs. Phelps looked along the shelves, taking her time. She didn't quite know what to bring out. How, she asked herself, does one choose a famous grown-up book for a 4-year-old girl? Her first thought was to pick a young teenager's romance of the kind that is written for 15-year-old schoolgirls, but for some reason she found herself instinctively walking past that particular shelf. Try this, she said at last. It's very famous and very good. If it's too long for you, just let me know and I'll find something shorter and a bit easier. Great Expectations, Matilda read, by Charles Dickens. I'd love to try it. I must be mad, Mrs. Phelps told herself, but to Matilda she said, Of course you may try it. Over the next few afternoons, Mrs. Phelps could hardly take her eyes from the small girl sitting for hour after hour in the big armchair at the far end of the room with the book on her lap. It was necessary to rest it on the lap because it was too heavy for her to hold up, which meant she had to sit leaning forward in order to read. And a strange sight it was, this tiny dark-haired person sitting there with her feet nowhere near touching the floor, totally absorbed in the wonderful adventures of Pip and old Miss Havisham and her cobwebbed house, and by the spell of that magic Dickens the great storyteller had woven with his words. The only movement from the reader was the lifting of the hand every now and then to turn over a page, and Mrs. Phelps always felt sad when the time came for her to cross the floor and say, It's 10 to 5, Matilda. During the first week of Matilda's visit, Mrs. Phelps had said to her, Does your mother walk you down here every day and then take you home? My mother goes to Aylesbury every afternoon to play bingo, Matilda had said. She doesn't know I come here. But that's surely not right, Mrs. Phelps said. I think you'd better ask her. I'd rather not, Matilda said. She doesn't encourage reading books, nor does my father. But what do they expect you to do every afternoon in an empty house? Just mooch around, really, and watch the telly. I see. She doesn't really care what I do, Matilda said, a little sadly. Mrs. Phelps was concerned about the child's safety. on the walk through the fairly busy village high street and the crossing of the road, but she decided not to interfere. Within a week, Matilda had finished Great Expectations, which, in that edition, contained 411 pages. "I loved it," she said to Mrs. Phelps. "Has Mr. Dickens written any others?" "A great number," said the astounded Mrs. Phelps. "Shall I choose you another?" Look, there she is reading her book. It's huge. Over the next 6 months, under Mrs. Phelps' watchful and compassionate eye, Matilda read the following books: Nicholas Nickleby by Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy, Gone to Earth by Mary Webb, Kim by Rudyard Kipling, The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner, The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, The Good Companions by J.B. Priestley, Brighton Rock by Graham Greene, Animal Farm by George Orwell. It was a formidable list, and by now Mrs. Phelps was filled with wonder and excitement, but it was probably a good thing that she did not allow herself to be completely carried away by it all. Almost anyone else witnessing the achievements of this small child would have been tempted to make a great fuss and shout all the news all over the village and beyond. But not so Mrs. Phelps. She was someone who minded her own business and had long since discovered it was seldom worthwhile to interfere with other people's children. "Mr. Hemingway says a lot of things I don't understand," Matilda said to her, "especially about men and women, but I loved it all the same. The way he tells it, I feel I am right there on the spot watching it all happen." "A fine writer will always make you feel that," Mrs. Phelps said, "and don't worry about the bits you can't understand. Sit back and allow the words to wash around you like music." I will. "Did you know," Mrs. Phelps said, "that public libraries like this allow you to borrow books and take them home?" "I didn't know that," Matilda said. "Could I do it?" "Of course," Mrs. Phelps said. "When you have chosen the book you want, bring it to me so I can make a note of it, and it's yours for 2 weeks. You can take more than one if you wish." Look, there she is, telling her. From then on, Matilda would visit the library only once a week in order to take out new books and return the old ones. Her own small bedroom now became her reading room, and there she would sit and read most afternoons, often with a mug of hot chocolate beside her. She was not quite tall enough to reach things around the kitchen, but she kept a small box in the outhouse, which she brought in and stood on in order to get whatever she wanted. Mostly it was hot chocolate she made, warming the milk in a saucepan on the stove before mixing it. Occasionally she made Bovril or Ovaltine. It was pleasant to take a hot drink up to her room and have it beside her as she sat in her silent room reading in the empty house in the afternoons. The books transported her into new worlds and introduced her to amazing people who lived exciting lives. She went on olden day sailing ships with Joseph Conrad. She went to Africa with Ernest Hemingway and to India with Rudyard Kipling. She travelled all over the world while sitting in her little room in an English village. There she is, reading in her room. And that's the end of chapter 1. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I really did. And I really, really think any of you that like that should read the rest of the book yourself, because it's a really good story. I'm sure those of you that have watched the film know how exciting it gets and how much more you find out on it, how interesting it is. And if you don't have time to read the book, maybe you can watch the film. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you all on Monday. Bye!